Our guest today is Caribbean-born immigrant who has risen from as an undocumented immigrant
Well,
to a U.S. citizen, journalist, entrepreneur, advocate, one of the most sought-after Caribbean persons within our community. She's the founder of ICN LLC, which owns 4 brands: Invest Caribbean, the global private sector investment agency of the Caribbean that offers funding, business subscriptions, and consulting services under one roof. Carib PR Wire, the only press release wire of the Caribbean and partner of Season PR, Newswire, News America's Now News Network, the Black Immigrant Daily News, and Heartbeat Communications, the award-winning digital ad and PR solutions agency offering subscription marketing services without the hassles of a huge retainer. And that's always good to hear. She's also a columnist and advocate for the Caribbean American community in the U.S. and the Caribbean. Her extensive knowledge about the Caribbean and its diaspora has seen her appearing and quoted in many major multimedia outlets, including CNN, the AP, Reuters, the New York Times, the International Business Times, the Miami Herald, New York Daily News, One Caribbean Television, among numerous Caribbean and Black media. And yes, she's also part of the Irie Jam team here from time to time. Her passion led her to finding Carib ID Running. This is very important. We're going to be talking about this today. Carib ID in 2008, which battled for a way for Caribbean nationals to accurately self-identify on U.S. Census forms. We're going to find out today why that is so important. In 2020, that advocacy was manifested on the 2020 forms, and for the first time in the census history, allowed Caribbean nationals to identify their nationality and ancestry. And we're going to know why that is so important. We welcome Miss Felicia Persaud. Good evening, Felicia.
A very happy National Caribbean Heritage Month to you, my friend, and to all the listeners, especially those in Jamaica and the Caribbean diaspora. It's an absolute pleasure to be joining you guys today.
Without a doubt. You know, Ronnie, when she says that, I can see the glee on her face because she has toiled hard. And this is a month when we can really sit back, reflect on the things that we have achieved and the opportunities that are still ahead of us.
Well, we're sharing in that today too. Thank you so much for joining us in Jamaica. This is the One Caribbean that we're trying to build. Felicia Persaud, we're happy to honor you today and to hear from you how we can contribute all with a better understanding of our Caribbean identity wherever we live, eh?
Well, Ronnie, it's absolutely great to be talking to you. I'm so thrilled about that. And I'm actually so thrilled about this month. You know, when I woke up this morning and I realized it was June 1st in Caribbean American Heritage Month, I woke up with a very big smile on my face. In fact, there's also a bird in my house, so I'm not really sure if that's a sign or
were there 3 little birds on you? Were there 3 little birds?
That's just a bird here in the house. It's like I'm in the Caribbean already.
Without a doubt.
But we're just very excited, especially since, you know, Joe Biden, our president, actually issued the proclamation early yesterday, already recognizing the 16th annual Caribbean American Heritage Month. And I think that was very noteworthy, especially since it's the first, actually the second year we've got our Caribbean American vice president as well. And now for the first time, we have the first Caribbean-born White House spokesperson. So we definitely have some firsts this year to celebrate. We've got several in the administration. But, you know, Ronnie, I think as we celebrate this month, we have a lot as Caribbean people. We've come a very far way, but I really do think that we have a far way to go.
Felicia, you know, you rightfully said that. And before we get into the importance and rationale of Caribbean Heritage Month, you care to mention some of the highlights from that proclamation from the president?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got it pulled up right here, so forgive me if I'm going to read this a little bit. But the president actually did mention recognizing the millions of Caribbean Americans who strengthen our country through their vibrant cultures, traditions, languages, and values. He also saluted Caribbean Americans in his administration, like I said, of course, Kamala Harris, but also we forget that the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, Homeland Security Secretary Alexandro Mayorkas, and of course, Domestic Policy Advisor Susan Rice. They all also have Caribbean heritage. He also recognized the other public servants, like, of course, late Jamaican American. We cannot never forget him, Colin Powell, the late General Colin Powell. And of course, as he stated, and I'm going to read this exactly from the president, every day we see the invaluable contributions Caribbean American communities have made to our country. Our nation has seen the persistence and character of generations of Caribbean Americans who have fought for equality and equity despite continued discrimination and hardship. Caribbean American entrepreneurs, scientists, medical professionals, teachers, artists, police officers, athletes, and contributors in every field have also left a lasting impact on our society. So I think it's very important that we hear, these words and really listen to this, and also remember the history on where we stand, because Caribbean people did not just come to this country in the 1900s. We were here since the 1600s as slaves as well. And that is a fact that many people don't really remember or recognize in the history of these United States.
But listen now, Miss Felicia Irwine, I'm getting goosebumps when you read that thing. That is more than just the customary courtesy of a head of state. That indicates a deep respect, which obviously permeates the highest levels of American society for a Caribbean contribution. When you consider how disparate and how small we are, that is very, very impressive. I'm glad that we can radiate this south of the border, because it lifts our spirits to think that is a justifiable a commendation of Caribbean work and identity. My goodness.
Indeed. And you see, and this is where now we go to the whole situation now.
When we feel good.
When we speak about the importance of Caribbean American Heritage Month, and how do we as a community leverage that? And Felicia, I throw that at you because, I'm not certain that it has permeated to the levels that it should at this point.
Absolutely agree with you, Irwin. And that's where I always have an issue. I mean, when you look especially at the coverage in mainstream media from places like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and you see even when Karine Jean-Pierre was just nominated and became press secretary, that no mention was made of her Caribbean heritage. The same with when Kamala Harris was nominated, and of course, when she became vice president, nothing again really focused on her Caribbean heritage. And then you look at the contrast when there is Hispanic Heritage Month, Asian American Heritage Month, Pride Month, all of these months that get so much more mainstream attention, so much more corporate attention. And then you look at where we are 16 years down the line and you wonder, what exactly have we achieved? And that's the sort of negative that you get, within our communities. Of course, we know it's Caribbean American Heritage Month. We're all excited. We're all proud. And now it's great to see all of these places across the state, like Pennsylvania, Georgia, Rhode Island, even Massachusetts, of course, here in South Florida, New York, always. But we're celebrating it. But where is that economic return to our community? Where is the corporate ads saluting Caribbean American Heritage Month on our media? And that's really where we need to put our focus. And that's where, again, our numbers come in and the economic worth of our community that we can actually show people come in. And that's where the census comes in.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So,
go ahead, Ron.
No. I'm wondering, how do you leverage these other things? And there's a contrast I'm picking up. This is not a happy one. The Caribbean immigrants appear to be doing so well in North America. We don't have the same respect coming from the United Kingdom. We are right now. Our thoughts are about people being deported. Now, people are deported from the United States as well. And I'm not against that where there's justifiable legal reason. But it's so significant that you people should be getting together and should be recording these successes and deepening your engagement with the American culture, economy, which in no way derogates from your Caribbean identity, does it?
Absolutely not. And that is exactly what we need to do. It is exactly why I sought to fight for Carib ID and the census identity, because I recognized when I launched my business back there in 2008 that it was important that we have the data. Every corporation we went to, whether it was for sponsorship or ads or to do business with us, asked us, well, where is the data? We don't see the data on Caribbean Americans.
Sure.
We don't even know you guys are present. We know you're part of the Black community. And that's about it. Where is your economic numbers? And that is really what started the fight for Carib ID. And I think, we have to keep going back to that, because it is what the Hispanics have used. It is what Asians have used. It is what the gay community used when they start talking about their numbers. They start showing exactly how much they're contributing economically to this country. And we're not able to do that. We're not even able to say how many we are in this country, even though we have been here since the 1600s. And so that is the reality that we face. And that is what we have to do. Yes, it's good to celebrate. It's good to party. It's good to say we throw the biggest parties and the biggest carnivals, and that's what we're known for. We want to also be known for economic impact on this country, and we do that every day in every corner, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, as service people, in every facet of this country. But now we have to be able to document it, and we're hoping that this 2020 census results can be able to show us that. That's why it was so important for people to take the census and to fill out the forms. But we have some interesting data that we actually just accessed, Ronnie and Irwine, from the census. And they have told us, according to their estimates in the American Community Survey from 2020, that the numbers have looked up to now 3.5 million. And that, of course, is an estimate. So it's 3.5 million West Indians or Caribbean people who claim Caribbean ancestry. And of course, Jamaicans are leading that number.
I know.
We have to take a break. Well, when we come back, we'll discuss the preeminence of the Jamaicans. Right. And also the big question, are we united? It's one thing to be identified. Can we, is there unity between us? Is there that common purpose? Where do we take it from there? All Felicia Persaud and Irwine Clare on the bridge, Irie Jam and the public eye. Soon come. Are we together, Felicia Persaud? We may have the numbers, but I hope that we are not making distinctions and differences as to who is from where and who have this color or that shade and thing.
Well, I think, Ronnie, here in the U.S., it's a little bit easier for us to kind of come together, because we all face the same issues. As the president said, we all face discrimination. And we all have the immigration issue that unites us. So a lot of that helps us, I think, here in the U.S. Of course, all politics is still local, and you still have every nationality that goes back to their own, country and responds to that, whether they're Jamaicans or Guyanese or whatever they are. But I feel where the disconnect is the Caribbean governments. When they come here to speak with U.S. officials, is that the diaspora is never included in their agenda. It is really about their own national politics or their own national needs, and sometimes regional, but never about the diaspora. And we're the ones that are voting here to actually keep that line open with the Caribbean and to lobby here to make sure that the U.S. understands the importance of the Caribbean region. So I think that is really where I see the disconnect most of the times happening.
But let me, Ronnie, one of the things too, and I'll throw this to Felicia, and as we advocate and lobby to seek that type of recognition and leverage where we are, it is also important too that Caribbean governments recognize their responsibility in all of this, because there's a sense of feeling at times that Caribbean nations, when they reach into the diaspora for certain skill sets and certain opportunities for work, Caribbean nationals don't seem to be on that list. Felicia, talk to us on that perspective. And one of the big ones that jumps up many a time is our tourism product. And because it is so obvious and it's right in front of us. Talk to us about that aspect of it and how it feeds into the whole mantra of us trying to establish and make sure we're properly leveraging this country.
Yeah, absolutely, Irwin. And it's important because, we're talking about the whole issue as we celebrate the second anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter. And yet somehow in the Caribbean, our governments don't seem to get that, especially when they award these contracts to all of these Caucasian-owned companies here, especially white-owned agencies in this country that are representing them as a country, especially on the tourism products. And they don't even demand any sort of diversity in the staffing of those agencies. And that really is a big issue, because when you look at corporate America even has to answer and to set aside certain percentage of their spend with minority companies.
Yes.
Our Caribbean governments don't even do that.
Well, no, that is a disclosure that we weren't aware of, I don't think. And it is so obvious and necessary. And it doesn't have to be mechanical. It doesn't have to be invidious at all. It is simply to say that, look, our people must play some part in the spend that we are making. And they are likely to be the most effective and the most responsive.
Without a doubt. And again, these are some of the things when we consider.
This is revealing.
It is. And this is where it goes back to because I'd like Felicia to talk to us some more, share with us some more. What is Carib ID and why is it that important? Because you see, it is from the census that many of the things we're talking about here can be realized. And I need that aspect of it to be reiterated. So Felicia, the whole drive for Carib ID, what was that really all about? And is about?
Well, Irwin, it is really about economic empowerment. And that is really what we're about, especially even at Invest Caribbean. We have to recognize that the Caribbean is not just about a party destination or a party people. Yes, we're known all over the world for our culture, our food, our happiness, our joy, everything. Everybody wants to be Caribbean at some point. But what they don't understand is that you also have to invest Caribbean. And that means whether you're in the Caribbean as a small business owner or you're here in the US as a small business owner, you need access to capital. You need to be able to show that you can contribute to this country. And Carib ID really is really the genesis of this, because when we have these numbers, now we can say there are 10,000 Americans who are Caribbean ancestry in Florida, for instance, maybe just in South Florida alone, who are business owners, and they make so much money per month. Here is the data that can now say, okay, now they can get some access to capital. They can get ease of access to the grants that are available. And I think that is what we have to start getting serious about. I mean, if COVID has taught us anything, it is that we have to look beyond tourism and look beyond that industry and start building from the ground up. And that means these talented small entrepreneurs that are all over the Caribbean and its diaspora, how can we bring them together to actually help to build a better region where we're not just dependent on outside help, on remittances, on foreigners coming in? And that's where we are. And that is the state of the Caribbean and the diaspora. So we both have to find that bridge. And it's great we're having this conversation. We're on Bridge FM. And we have to talk about that, because these are the real issues. As we look at the Summit of the Americas that's coming up, not a single Caribbean government has reached out to the diaspora to get the sense of what issues are affecting us here that can be included in their agenda when they go there. What are they going there for? Another photo op? to really just talk the same issues, because I don't really see much changing. I don't see a new agenda post-COVID. I don't see any sort of push. And that's what we have to have. We have to engage. We have so many talented people here in the Caribbean American diaspora. Yet when contracts are issued, RFPs, nobody knows about them. Nobody knows how to actually access these contracts, how to be able to come together. The governments don't know how to be able to access human capital. So what happens is that consultants from Europe and all over, they're the ones getting the contract, and we're left out. Are we independent or what?
Well,
Indeed.
Okay. What's the therapy? Is it a matter of political will? Is it a question of recalibrating the role of consulates and embassies? Is it are there new sinews that can be stitched together with non-government agencies, with civic groups? You tell us.
Well, it's a little bit of all of the above. And you know, when it comes to consulates and missions and these ambassadors, I'm sorry, I make no apologies for this. I find it a waste of time and money, because you hardly ever hear from them. Maybe Jamaica is probably the most vocal with their consulates and with their ambassadors. I don't even know who the Guyana ambassador is, and I have no idea what they do exactly. So to me, that is really what they should be doing, but they're not. And how do we do it? We have to now engage, I think, the civic organizations with the business and with everybody who is here to be able to have this sort of conversation and this dialogue, and then move it forward, because there is no agenda. The people who claim to be representing us really don't do anything beyond the fluff and the photo op, and the serious issues are just getting thrown away. And that's what we need to do. We don't need Caribbean leaders just coming and going to the White House and meeting with Kamala and having a photo op. We need to be engaged in the conversation to say, look, we need to have grants. We need to have access to capital. We need these small organizations that have been struggling for 20 plus years to be able to get grants so they can continue to do the nonprofit work that they are supposed to be doing. We need access to capital for the small businesses so they can become big businesses. And that is what we need to be chopping away at. And yes, we also have to chop away at corporate America, because now we should have all these ads on the bridge that says, hey, celebrate Caribbean American Heritage Month, McDonald's, you know, Pepsi, whichever. But you don't see that happening, unlike other people. And that's where we have to be more vigilant.
And you see, Ronnie and Felicia, and this is, you mentioned some touch points there. And this is by no means to say that there aren't Caribbean nationals in many of these entities. We also have to call ourselves out, because we do have significant Caribbean presence in several of these corporate 500 companies that they themselves would recognize other Heritage Month celebrations. Where are our Caribbean nationals who are so strategically placed? Are they advocating and lobbying for these type of situations as well? So whereas we point to others who should be doing, we also have a responsibility in this. Felicia Persaud?
Absolutely, Irwine, absolutely. And we have enough people that should be able to get us and move us along. And unfortunately, that is not happening too. So it's like almost, I think when they get inside corporate America, they suddenly become embarrassed that they're Caribbean. And suddenly they're trying to fit in and be something else that they're not. And that's what happens, I think, in a lot of places when you look at it and you actually investigate and you find it, oh, they're born in the Caribbean. Really, it's not a fact that they actually mention upfront in any way. And that is also something, it's almost a stigma, but it goes back to the whole stigma, I guess, of how, you know, especially even African Americans, how they actually react to us and how they treat us. Because we have, you know, Ronnie, now an issue here in this country where there is a group calling for reparations, but it's like reparations for African Americans, but not Caribbean immigrants or Caribbean people of African ancestry. And my question is always, how do you decide that? Because if we've been here since the 1600s, how do you then tell us that we should not get reparations too? And so, so we have all of these issues, I
And
think, going around. But like you said, Irwin, we
yeah.
have to stand up very proudly and say we're Caribbean immigrants and continue to hold the flag and, push it forward, even though it's going slowly, but we surely are pushing forward.
And one of the things that we should also highlight here is that there's some dangers here if we do not coalesce and hold on to what we have achieved. Because I saw recently, and again, this is public disclosure, where our Haitian brothers and sisters who have made significant inroads into the political infrastructure and economic infrastructure in this country have now stepped out and are demanding of a Haitian American Heritage Month. Now, that is problematic from the standpoint that we have not been able to hold on to what we have achieved. At the same token, to start having those cracks within the Caribbean community, because yes, Haiti is a part of the Caribbean, is can present some challenges going forth. And so we do have some work to do within the Caribbean American community, Ronnie and Felicia.
Hold that thought for me, because it's the work for the way forward. It's the observances of this month that we want to conclude this interview in just a while. Stay tuned. Talking Caribbean identity, Caribbean advancement, talking recording and advancing as we make our mark in the world. Felicia Persaud in the United States, Irwine Clare at Irie Jam in New York, on the bridge with the public eye. So what's going to happen this month? Are there a series of events of connections that you're hoping for, and the therapy for the way forward? I've got the mandate clearly, Felicia, about the Caribbean governments and the time we really have to stop paying lip service to the diaspora or treating you as money bags. There's much more, and it is vitally necessary now that we go there. Lead us.
Absolutely. And that is something that we have to keep pushing this month. We're hoping that the AFUI, the American Foundation of the University of the West Indies, their conversation later this month is always instrumental in actually getting the UWI and the Vice Chancellor there to also get involved in this sort of bridge with the diaspora and the region to kind of push the conversation forward. But
well,
I know
hope
there
so.
are
They're kind
a
of
number
sleepy,
of events that are happening.
Yes.
And also we'll find too that in various cities you'll have either proclamations by respective cities, recognizing the contribution of Caribbean Americans. One of the things that New York has probably failed miserably from my perspective, and persons like myself are part of that challenge too, is that New York, where is the bastion of Caribbean nationals, where most of us reside, we need to step up our game and be doing more. It cannot just be some window dressing stuff. We need to be doing a lot more here in the tri-state area, and that is something for us to work on going forward. But there are activities taking place, and whether it be in Washington, Atlanta, in South Florida and elsewhere, to recognize this our month where we celebrate Caribbean American Heritage Month. But a lot more is still required.
Can you say more, Felicia, about that hint at 3.5 million? Is that likely to be confirmed? And is that enough of a critical mass to keep things moving? Does that include people up from the non-Anglo-Caribbean, like the Haitians, like the Dominicanos, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely, Ronnie. Again, this is just the estimate from the American Community Survey, which is not the full census as yet. So we're still going to get the full census data, but this is just the latest, and it's an estimate of those, populations that they pick out and look at different cities. And of course, they do include the Haitians. Haitians are actually the second largest group in that amount. But we also did not include the Hispanic West Indies because they are separate, they have their own Hispanic category and they have their own numbers. And so this is mostly focused on West Indians who are non-Hispanics, includes the Dutch and the French West Indies and the British, of course, and just about everybody else in that region.
Do we have a lesson to learn from the Hispanic Caribbean that they as far as I know, they don't seem to divide on national grounds, but see themselves perhaps more cohesive than we do? Is that so?
Yeah, because Ronnie, they recognize the national issues. And, it's interesting. I have to say this publicly because it was the Hispanics who actually helped me when I was started Carib ID and really pushed me along. But they also warned me that the Black community is very divisive. And we definitely faced that because what we faced was a lot of people saying we're about divide and rule, which absolutely had nothing to do with race. It was about counting the Caribbean as a region. And as you know, Ronnie, it's a number of races and cultures and just about everybody in the melting pot. But that is not absolutely a known fact here in the US. In fact, many Americans who were born in this country believe that Caribbean people are all Black. So their feeling was we were dividing and ruling. And again, coming back to the Hispanics, they hold it together because they recognize the national issues. Even though they have their own internal infighting, we never see that on a public scale at all because they do have their own internal.
And in fact, we might say we do have Puerto Rican heritage, Puerto Rican Day March, and we have the Dominican Day March. Yes. So you have those situations, but to come back to our situation though, and this is where it is important to note, and that is the numbers do count, and you must remember that the last census was taken against a backdrop where there was an anti-immigrant sentiment. So when you look at it, Ronnie and Felicia, we could arguably say it is a significant undercount because the Trump administration basically did not want the undocumented numbers in the census. And it had collateral damage because it also impacted the regular the families that were documented because the immigration piece was a scare for many. So I can only look forward to the next census when we become more, I want to say, mature, Felicia, recognizing the achievements of Carib ID to self identify that these numbers will paint a better picture.
Well,
definitely. And in the meantime, I think we need to also, recognize the people who have paved the way and, of course, made history in this country. And with that in mind, and on News Americas now, we're actually doing that all month. We're going to identify the people in history who have really made an impact. And this dates back to 1660 with one Denmark Vesey, who was actually a slave from the Caribbean and actually came to the US and led a revolt here. It was the first slave revolt in the US. So these are the sort of historical stories we're going to be telling on newsamericasnow.com. And we definitely want to keep telling our story because this is the month for us to remind people that, yes, we have been here and we're here to stay and we're not going anywhere.
Makes us feel so good.
Indeed.
and want to collaborate in every way. Share some of those stories on the bridge with us. We'll be happy to join with you. Felicia, thank you so much for sharing and thank you so much for the work you're doing. Yes.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Blessings.
And let's not forget, and she says it, she was an undocumented immigrant.
Whoa.
Yep.
Okay. All right. There you go. There's
good that can come out of it.
All right.
Thanks so
Happy
much.
Thank you very much,
Caribbean
Felicia.
heritage.
Good then.
Sure.